The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with tension. 47 different species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, growls, hisses, and electronic tones. At the center of it all sat the human delegation, quiet and calm as always. Ambassador Lee Tae-ho adjusted his simple black suit and watched the chaos unfold. For 30 years, humans had sat in these same seats, listening to threats and accusations with endless patience. Today would be different. Chancellor Vexitar rose from his seat, his green scales catching the artificial light. The reptilian hegemony leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, his muscles rippling under his ceremonial armor. His voice boomed across the chamber. "The Outer Rim territories will belong to the hegemony," Vexitar declared. "These worlds are rich with resources that weak species cannot properly use. We will take what we need." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. The Outer Rim contained dozens of colonies from various species, including 3 human settlements. Hive Queen Zilneth spoke next, her voice a harmonic blend of 1,000 individual insects. "The collective agrees with Chancellor Vexitar. Strong species must expand. Weak species must yield." Lee Tae-ho remained seated, his hands folded calmly in his lap. Admiral Park Ji-woo sat beside him, her military uniform crisp and clean. She had not spoken once during the entire session. Several smaller species protested loudly. The bird-like Ethans screeched their objections. The aquatic Neptunes gurgled their disapproval. But everyone knew the truth. The strong took what they wanted in this galaxy. The weak survived by hiding or serving. Humans had always been somewhere in between. Not strong enough to dominate, not weak enough to ignore. They had earned respect through their diplomacy and their strange insistence on following rules that others broke freely. Chancellor Vexitar's yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation. "The humans will abandon their colonies in the Outer Rim. They have 7 days to evacuate. And if we refuse?" Lee Tae-ho asked quietly. Vexitar's laugh was like grinding stone. "Then you will learn why the hegemony rules 12 systems while humans struggle to hold 3. The chamber fell silent. Everyone expected the usual human response. A request for mediation, an appeal to the Council's better nature, a diplomatic solution that satisfied no one but prevented war. Instead, Lee Tae-ho stood up slowly. His movement was so deliberate that it commanded attention from every being in the room. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that no one had ever heard from a human before. "For 30 years we have sat in these chambers. We have listened to threats. We have accepted insults. We have chosen peace over pride, negotiation over force." His eyes swept across the assembly. "We did this because we hoped you would learn to coexist without violence." Admiral Park Ji-woo reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small device. She placed it on the table but did not activate it. "We warned you once before," Lee Tae-ho continued, "during the trade wars, when the hegemony attacked the spiral colonies. Do you remember what I said then, Chancellor?" Vexitar's expression showed confusion. "You spoke of restraint, of measured responses, the same weakness you always preach. I told you that humans were holding back." Lee Tae-ho's voice remained calm, but something had changed, something that made the hair on the necks of every mammalian species stand on end. "I told you that our peaceful nature was a choice, not a limitation." The Hive Queen's 1,000 voices harmonized in what might have been laughter. "Humans speak of hidden strength like all weak species. You threaten what you cannot deliver." Lee Tae-ho nodded to Admiral Park Ji-woo. She activated the device on the table. A holographic display filled the air above the assembly. 3 decades ago, when we joined this council, we shared our history with you," Lee Tae-ho said. "We showed you our art, our culture, our achievements in science and exploration. What we did not show you was why we had to leave Earth." The hologram displayed images of Earth. Beautiful blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in perfect patterns. It looked like paradise. "Earth was not always a garden world," Admiral Park Ji-woo spoke for the first time. Her voice was cold as deep space. 50,000 years ago, it was ruled by creatures that would terrify your worst nightmares. Massive predators with claws like swords and teeth like spears. They dominated every ecosystem, every food chain. New images appeared. Massive creatures with fangs longer than a human arm. Bears the size of small buildings. Cats with claws that could tear through metal. Reptiles that made Chancellor Vexitar look like a harmless pet. Where did they go? Lee Tae-ho asked the assembly. What happened to Earth's apex predators? Silence filled the chamber. Every species knew the answer, but none wanted to say it. "We killed them," Admiral Park Jiwoo said simply. "All of them. Every single one. We hunted them until they no longer existed, not just the dangerous ones. The ones that competed with us for resources, the ones that might someday threaten our children. The ones that simply took up space we wanted." The hologram showed new images. Humans with primitive weapons, working together to bring down creatures 10 times their size. Humans setting traps using fire, turning the environment itself into a weapon. "You see," Lee Tae-ho continued, "we learned something important during those early years. Cooperation is more dangerous than any individual strength. Intelligence is more deadly than any natural weapon. And patience. Patience is the most terrifying trait of all." Chancellor Vextar was no longer laughing. His scaled hands gripped the arms of his chair. "We chose to be civilized," Lee Tae-ho said. "We chose to follow rules, to negotiate, to find peaceful solutions. We hoped that other species would see the wisdom in this choice. We hoped that you would understand that survival did not require constant warfare." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But you have confused civilization with weakness. You have mistaken our restraint for inability. You have forgotten that the most dangerous predator is the one that chooses not to hunt." The hologram shifted to show human colonies in the outer rim. Peaceful settlements with farms and schools and markets. Children playing in gardens while their parents worked and studied. "These colonies represent our choice to build rather than destroy," Lee Tae-ho said. "They are proof that we have learned to be more than what we were. But they are also our children. And there is nothing more dangerous than threatening a human's children." He turned to face Chancellor Vexatar directly. "So let me be very clear, Chancellor. We are withdrawing from the non-aggression accords effective immediately. Our restraint is officially ended. If you want our colonies, come and take them. But understand this, what happens next will be your choice, not ours." The chamber erupted in chaos as the human delegation walked out, leaving the hologram still displaying images of Earth's lost predators. And for the first time in 30 years, the galaxy wondered what humans were truly capable of. The University of New Seoul buzzed with activity as students from dozens of species filled the lecture hall. Dr. Kim Mirai stood at the front of the room, her presentation materials ready. Today's topic was comparative evolutionary biology, a subject she had taught for 15 years. What she didn't know was that her lecture was being broadcast to intelligence agencies across the galaxy. In the depths of the Reptilian Intelligence Center, analysts watched every word. Insectoid codebreakers recorded every gesture. The events at Nexus Prime had sent shockwaves through the galactic community, and everyone wanted to understand what humans had really meant by their threats. "Today we will examine extinction events," Dr. Kim Mirai began, activating her holographic display. "Specifically, we will look at what happened on Earth during the late Pleistocene period." The display showed a timeline stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Across the galaxy, alien scientists leaned forward in their chairs. 50,000 years ago, Earth experienced what we call the Quaternary Extinction Event, Dr. Kim continued. In a relatively short period of time, most of the planet's large animals disappeared forever. Images filled the air above the students. Massive creatures with impossible anatomy. The cave bear, larger than any predator currently alive. The short-faced bear, built like a living tank. Saber-toothed cats with fangs designed for killing. Ground sloths the size of elephants. On Reptilian Prime, Chancellor Vextar watched with growing unease. These creatures looked like they could tear apart his finest warriors. "The interesting question," Dr. Kim said, "is not what killed them. We know what killed them. The question is why it happened so quickly and so completely." She clicked to the next slide. It showed a map of Earth with red dots spreading across every continent. The extinction pattern followed human migration exactly. As humans spread across the planet, large animals disappeared. This was not a coincidence. In the insectoid collective, thousands of minds processed this information simultaneously. The Hive Queen herself directed her attention to the lecture. "But humans were primitive then," one student said. "They had simple tools, no advanced technology. How could they eliminate creatures so much larger and stronger?" Dr. Kim smiled. "An excellent question. Let me show you how humans hunted the Irish elk." The hologram changed to show a recreation of an ancient hunt. Humans with spears and fire surrounded a massive deer with antlers wider than a human was tall. But they didn't attack directly. First, they studied their prey for months. They learned its habits, its weaknesses, its fears. Then they used those weaknesses against it. The holographic humans set fires to drive the elk toward a cliff. Others dug hidden pits along escape routes. Still others used calls and sounds to confuse the animal, making it panic and run in the wrong direction. Notice that they didn't rely on individual strength, Dr. Kim explained. They used cooperation, planning, and environmental manipulation. The elk was bigger and stronger than any single human, but it couldn't compete with human intelligence. Across the galaxy, military analysts began taking notes. The most important thing to understand, Dr. Kim continued, is that humans didn't just hunt for food, they eliminated competition. Any creature that might threaten human dominance was targeted for extinction. She showed new images, massive predators that had ruled their ecosystems for millions of years, all gone within a few thousand years of human arrival. The cave lion, the European leopard, the giant hyena, all apex predators, all extinct. Humans didn't just survive alongside these creatures. They actively hunted them until none remained. In a military bunker on Reptilian Prime, General Keshatar paused his strategic planning. They eliminated their competition entirely, he muttered. Not just defeated it, eliminated it. Captain Huang Do-yun stood in the training grounds of Earth Defense Station 7, watching his Special Forces unit run exercises. He had no idea that alien spy satellites were recording every movement. The exercise looked simple enough. 12 humans against a computer-simulated alien force 3 times their size. The humans were given basic equipment and told to complete an objective, while being hunted by superior enemies. What disturbed the watching aliens was how the humans approached the problem. They didn't charge in heroically. They didn't rely on superior firepower. Instead, they disappeared. The computer simulation showed enemy forces searching for humans who seemed to have vanished completely. The humans had split up, hidden, and were systematically studying their opponents. Their learning patterns observed tactical. Analyst Forthak of the Hegemony. Navy. Look how they track enemy movements without engaging. For 6 hours, the humans avoided contact. They mapped enemy patrol routes, identified weak points, and located key infrastructure. Only then did they strike. The attack was swift and brutal. The humans hit command centers simultaneously, cutting off enemy communications. They destroyed supply lines and escape routes. They used psychological warfare, making their enemies afraid and confused. By the time the simulation ended, the superior alien force had been completely eliminated without inflicting a single casualty on the humans. Run it again, Captain Huang ordered. This time, make the enemy force 5 times larger. The watching aliens realized with growing horror that the humans weren't trying to win quickly. They were practicing, learning, preparing for enemies they had never even met. Dr. Kim Mirai continued her lecture, unaware that her words were being analyzed by every major intelligence agency in the galaxy. The key to understanding human expansion is recognizing that we are persistence predators, she explained. We don't need to be faster or stronger than our prey. We just need to be more determined. She showed footage of humans hunting on ancient Earth. They chased animals for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never giving up. The prey would eventually collapse from exhaustion, even though it was faster and stronger than its human hunters. Humans can run farther than almost any other species. We can go without food longer. We can survive in environments that would kill other creatures. Most importantly, we never stop thinking, never stop planning, never stop adapting. In the depths of space, alien civilizations began to understand what they were really facing. This explains their diplomatic behavior, noted Chief Analyst Zilkmore of the Collective. They were not being weak. They were being patient, studying us, learning our weaknesses. The realization sent chills through military commanders across the galaxy. For 30 years, humans had sat in council chambers listening to threats and negotiations. Everyone had assumed they were simply peaceful by nature. Now they understood the truth. Humans had been doing what they had always done throughout their history. They had been studying their potential prey. On Earth Defense Station 7, Captain Huang received a priority message from Fleet Command. He read it quickly, then smiled. Cancel the training exercises, he told his unit. We're going operational. His soldiers grinned back at him. They had been practicing for 30 years. Now they would finally get to show the galaxy what humans had learned during their long study period. Dr. Kim Mirai concluded her lecture with a final thought that would be quoted in alien intelligence reports for years to come. The most dangerous thing about humans is not our technology or our weapons, she said. It's our ability to wait. We can plan for generations. We can prepare for threats that don't even exist yet. And when we finally decide to act, we do so with complete commitment and total ruthlessness. As students filed out of the lecture hall, alien analysts across the galaxy reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humans hadn't joined the galactic community to learn from other species. They had joined to study them. And now, after 30 years of study, the humans apparently felt ready to graduate. The colony of New Jeju had been peaceful for 23 years. Farmers tended their crops under the light of twin suns while children played in carefully maintained parks. The settlement housed 50,000 humans who had never known war. War Chief Kreldor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony through tactical displays. Behind him, the reptilian hegemony's finest assault fleet prepared for battle, 60 ships armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Begin the attack, Kreldor commanded. The first wave hit the colony's orbital defenses. To the reptilians' surprise, the human defense platforms offered only token resistance before shutting down completely. They're surrendering already, laughed Commander Vaskil. Humans have no stomach for real war. But War Chief Kreldor frowned as he watched the tactical display. Something felt wrong. The human response was too organized, too quick. The colonists were evacuating in perfect order, following routes that seemed planned in advance. Sir, reported the sensor operator. Human civilian ships are departing the system. They're not even trying to defend their homes. Kreldor felt a chill run down his spine. In 30 years of warfare, he had never seen an entire population evacuate so efficiently. It was as if they had practiced this exact scenario hundreds of times. Maybe they're cowards, suggested Commander Vaskil. Maybe they... Alarms shrieked across the bridge. The sensor operator's voice cracked with fear. Contact. Multiple human ships dropping out of hyperspace. Commander Yoon Seojin stood in the command center of the EDF Incheon, watching her fleet materialize around the reptilian force. 36 human ships against 60 alien vessels. The numbers looked bad for humanity, but numbers had never been the point. All ships, execute pattern Omega, Commander Yoon said calmly. The human fleet moved like a living thing. Ships that had been separate entities moments before suddenly became parts of a single organism. They flowed around the reptilian formation like water around rocks, each vessel knowing exactly where its companions would be. War Chief Kreldor watched in growing horror as his superior force was systematically dismantled. The humans didn't fight like civilized species. They fought like predators. Target their command ship, he ordered. But the human ship seemed to know what he was thinking before he thought it. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy. It was as if they had fought this exact battle before. Lieutenant Choi Hyerin led her fighter squadron through the enemy formation, her heart racing with excitement. For years she had run simulations against reptilian tactics. She knew their ships better than their own pilots did. Eagle Squadron, begin hunting Pattern 7, she commanded. Her fighters spread out like a pack of wolves. They didn't just attack enemy ships, they herded them, forcing them into positions where they couldn't effectively return fire, separating them from their support vessels, making them panic and make mistakes. The reptilian pilots fought bravely, but they were fighting an enemy that understood them completely. Every weakness in their ship design had been catalogued. Every flaw in their tactics had been studied. Every psychological pressure point had been mapped. They're not just beating us, gasped one reptilian pilot over the communications. They're playing with us. And it was true. Lieutenant Choi could have destroyed her targets quickly and efficiently. Instead, she was taking her time, letting them struggle, letting them hope they might escape before crushing that hope. She had learned this technique from studying how humans hunted on ancient Earth. The prey needed to understand that it was prey. The predator needed to establish dominance completely, not just victory. War Chief Kreldor's flagship shuddered under human weapons fire. His shields were failing, his engines damaged. Around him, his fleet was being methodically destroyed. But the humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to send a message. "Sir," called the communications officer. "The humans are hailing us. Commander Yoon Seojin appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and professional. War Chief Kreldor, I am offering you the opportunity to surrender. Never, Kreldor snarled. The hegemony does not yield to inferior species. Commander Yoon smiled, and that smile made Kreldor's blood freeze. It was the smile of something that enjoyed the hunt. Very well, she said. Continue fighting. We have plenty of time. The transmission ended and the human attacks resumed. But now Kreldor understood the terrible truth. The humans weren't trying to destroy his fleet quickly. They were savoring it. His ships were taken apart piece by piece. Not destroyed, but disabled. Weapons stripped away, engines crippled, life support damaged, but not destroyed. The humans wanted survivors. They wanted witnesses. Lieutenant Choi's squadron finished off the last reptilian fighters with casual efficiency. Her pilots moved with the confidence of creatures that had never known defeat. They had been designed by evolution to be the ultimate hunters, and 30 years of studying galactic military doctrine had only sharpened their skills. All enemy fighters destroyed, she reported to Commander Yoon. Minimal damage to our forces. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Begin recovery operations. The battle was over in less than 4 hours. Of the 60 reptilian ships that had attacked New Jeju, 58 were destroyed or disabled. The 2 remaining vessels were left intact deliberately. War Chief Kreldor found himself aboard one of those ships, his crew traumatized and broken. Half his warriors were dead. The other half stared at him with eyes that had seen the face of their species' greatest nightmare. Commander Yoon's face appeared on his screen one final time. War Chief Kreldor, you will return to reptilian space with a message for Chancellor Vextar. Tell him that this was not a battle. This was a demonstration. Tell him that we allowed you to survive so that you could carry this story back to your people. Kreldor's voice came out as a whisper. What are you? We are what we have always been, Commander Yoon replied. We are human. The difference is that we are no longer pretending to be anything else. She leaned forward, her eyes boring into his. You have 7 days to evacuate all reptilian forces from human space. After that, we stop being merciful. The transmission ended, leaving Kreldor alone with his surviving crew and his terror. As the human fleet departed, they left behind something more devastating than any weapon. They left behind the knowledge that everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans was wrong. On the bridge of the EDF Incheon, Commander Yoon watched the stars and felt a familiar sensation from her childhood. The satisfaction of a successful hunt, the knowledge that the prey now understood its place in the food chain. Set course for Earth, she commanded. Admiral Park will want a full report. Her crew moved efficiently to carry out her orders. They had just fought their first real battle in 30 years, and they had performed exactly as their training had predicted, like the apex predators they had always been. War Chief Kreldor's journey back to reptilian space took 3 days. 3 days of staring at star charts and trying to understand what had happened to his fleet. 3 days of watching his warriors jump at shadows and whisper about human ships in the darkness. By the time he reached Reptilian Prime, one fact had become crystal clear in his mind. The humans had not been trying to win a war. They had been teaching the galaxy to be afraid. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. War Chief Kreldor's testimony had spread through intelligence networks like wildfire. Every species was demanding answers, explanations, reassurances that would never come. Chancellor Vextar stood before the assembly, his usual confidence replaced by something his species had rarely experienced: fear. The human fleet fought like a single organism, he reported, his voice tight with strain. They knew our tactics better than we did. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy. It was as if they had been practicing against us for decades. In the human section, Ambassador Lee Tae-ho sat quietly with his hands folded. The questions and accusations swirled around him like a storm, but he remained perfectly calm. How is this possible? Demanded the Ethan representative, her feathers ruffled with anxiety. Humans have always been peaceful. Your military doctrine has always been defensive. Lee Tae-ho finally stood and the chamber fell silent. You are correct, he said simply. Our published military doctrine has always been defensive. What you fail to understand is that we have 2 sets of military doctrine. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. For 30 years, We have shared with you our peaceful intentions, our defensive strategies, our commitment to nonviolence, Lee Tae-ho continued. What we have not shared is our true military capability. He gestured to Admiral Park Ji-woo, who activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Admiral, please show our colleagues what Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-min's command really looks like. The hologram revealed something that made every alien representative freeze in terror. It showed the human fleet as it truly was. Not the small defensive force they had believed existed, but a massive war machine spread across dozens of systems. 300 capital ships, 2,000 destroyers, countless fighters and support vessels, all moving in perfect coordination, like a pack of wolves that had grown to span the galaxy. "This is impossible," whispered the Neptunian ambassador. "Our intelligence networks would have detected such a force." Director Bae Sunmi stood from her seat in the gallery. Until now, most species hadn't even known she existed. "Allow me to introduce myself," she said with a cold smile. "I am Director Bae Sunmi of Human Intelligence Operations. I have been looking forward to meeting all of you officially." The words sent a chill through the assembly. An intelligence director revealing herself meant only one thing. The time for secrets was over. For 30 years, every human embassy, every trade mission, every cultural exchange has served a dual purpose, Director Bae explained. While our diplomats conducted official business, our intelligence operatives studied you. She activated her own display, showing detailed files on every species represented in the council. "We know your military capabilities, your technological weaknesses, your political structures, your psychological profiles. We know which of your leaders can be reasoned with and which must be eliminated. We know how to destroy your civilizations without firing a single shot." The insectoid hive queen's 1,000 voices harmonized in distress. "This violates every treaty, every agreement of peaceful coexistence." "No," Lee Tae-ho said firmly. "We violated nothing. We simply prepared for the possibility that peaceful coexistence might fail, as it has." Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-min's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from the bridge of the EDF Sejong. Behind him, the stars moved in patterns that suggested tremendous speed. "Council members," the Admiral said formally, "I am currently en route to the Outer Rim with the First Fleet. Our mission is to secure human colonies against further aggression." The display showed his fleet, 200 ships moving in perfect formation. But it was their coordination that truly terrified the watching aliens. They moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like a single living entity with 200 parts. "How many of you are there?" Chancellor Vexistar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. General Nam Kyung-ho appeared on another screen, his image transmitted from the surface of a contested world. "General Nam Kyung-ho, Human Ground Forces. Currently conducting security operations on 17 planets." The implication was clear. 17 planets were already under human control, and the Council hadn't even known operations were underway. "You see," Lee Tae-ho explained to the stunned assembly, "humans learned long ago that the most successful predator is the one that isn't recognized as a predator until it's too late." Director Bae activated another display, this one showing the faces of hundreds of aliens, scientists, diplomats, military officers, government officials. These individuals have been working with human intelligence for years, some knowingly, some unknowingly, some because they believed in human values, and some because we made it worth their while. The Neptunian ambassador stared at the display in horror. His own aide was among the faces shown. "Every government in this chamber has been infiltrated," Director Bae continued. "Every military has been studied. Every weakness has been catalogued. We know who among you will fight, who will flee, and who will surrender." The chamber erupted in accusations and panic. Species turned on each other, wondering who else might be compromised. Trust, the foundation of the galactic community, crumbled in real time. "This is an act of war," shouted the crystalline delegate. "No," Admiral Park Ji-woo said calmly. "This is preparation for war. The act of war was committed when Chancellor Vextar decided to attack human colonies." General Nam Kyung-ho's voice cut through the chaos. "I have 17 divisions of human ground forces currently deployed. Each division has been training for combat against specific alien species for over a decade. We know your biology, your psychology, your tactics." He paused, letting the implication sink in. "My soldiers don't just know how to fight you. They know how to break you. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. We have studied what makes each of your species surrender, and we have weaponized that knowledge. The holographic displays shifted to show human soldiers in training. But these weren't the defensive exercises that alien observers had been allowed to see. These were assault operations, psychological warfare techniques, and interrogation methods specifically designed for different alien anatomies. The reptilian nervous system can be disrupted with specific electromagnetic frequencies. General Nam explained with clinical detachment. Insectoid pheromone communication can be hijacked and turned against them. Crystalline entities shatter along predictable fracture lines when subjected to harmonic resonance. Each revelation was like a physical blow to the alien representatives. They had lived among humans for 30 years believing they understood them. Now they realized they had been living among creatures that had been systematically planning their destruction. "Why are you telling us this?" demanded the Ethan representative. "Because," Lee Taeho said simply, "we want you to understand what you're facing. We want you to make informed decisions about your future." Director Bay smiled again, and it was the smile of a predator that had cornered its prey. "We have contingency plans for every species in this chamber. Plans for conquest, plans for subjugation, plans for extinction. The choice of which plan we implement depends entirely on your actions in the next few days." The chamber fell silent except for the sound of breathing, clicking and electronic humming from dozens of terrified species. "We gave you 30 years to learn to coexist peacefully," Lee Taeho said. "You chose instead to view our restraint as weakness. You chose to threaten our colonies, our people, our children." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "So, now you will learn why human beings are the apex predators of Earth. And you will discover that 30 years of studying you has made us the apex predators of the galaxy as well." The session ended with alien representatives fleeing to their ships, racing to warn their governments of the nightmare they had unknowingly been living beside. But as Director Bay watched them go, she knew the truth that none of them had yet realized. It was already too late to run. The reptilian war room had been in constant session for 72 hours. Chancellor Vextar stared at tactical displays showing human forces advancing through 3 star systems simultaneously. Every counterattack had failed. Every defense had crumbled. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his generals. "We have superior numbers, superior firepower, superior technology." General Keshatar pointed to the display with a trembling claw. "They're not fighting us, Chancellor. They're hunting us." The difference was becoming terrifyingly clear. When reptilian forces concentrated for a major battle, the humans simply disappeared. When they spread out to cover more territory, human strike teams materialized to pick them off piece by piece. Colonel Go Yunho sat in his command center aboard the psychological warfare vessel EDF Gwangju, watching feeds from across reptilian space. His team had been broadcasting for only 6 hours, but the effects were already visible. "Reptilian military communications are becoming increasingly paranoid," reported his aide. "They're accusing each other of being human agents. Command structure is breaking down." Colonel Go smiled. "Phase 2 protocols, Lieutenant. Begin targeting civilian population centers." The broadcasts that followed were works of art. Colonel Go had spent 15 years studying reptilian psychology, learning exactly what fears kept them awake at night. Now he was weaponizing those fears. The messages appeared on every reptilian communication network simultaneously. They showed human soldiers moving through reptilian cities like ghosts. They showed human ships appearing in supposedly secure systems. Most terrifyingly, they showed human intelligence agents who had been operating within reptilian society for decades. "The human among you could be anyone," the broadcasts whispered in perfect reptilian. "Your aide, your mate, your offspring. They have been watching you, studying you, preparing for this moment." The psychological impact was devastating. Reptilian society, built on rigid hierarchy and absolute trust in authority, began to tear itself apart from within. Captain Lim Soo-young crouched in the shadows of a reptilian military installation, watching her target through night vision scopes. General Thokvar was the hegemony's finest strategic mind, the architect of their most successful campaigns. He was also completely alone. Her intelligence team had spent months learning his routines, his habits, his fears. They knew he suffered from a condition that made him paranoid about confined spaces. They knew he preferred to work late at night in his private study. They knew exactly how to make him vulnerable. The attack came not as an assault, but as a carefully orchestrated terror campaign. Lights went out one by one through the complex. Security systems failed in a specific sequence designed to drive their target toward a predetermined location. General Thokvar found himself running through darkened corridors, his bodyguards mysteriously absent, strange sounds echoing from the walls around him. By the time he reached what he thought was safety, his psychological state was exactly where Captain Lim wanted it. "General Thokvar," she said, stepping out of the shadows with her weapon lowered. "I'm not here to kill you." The reptilian general spun around, his eyes wide with panic. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," Captain Lim said calmly. "This installation houses 3,000 of your finest soldiers. Right now, my team controls your power grid, your communications, your life support, and your weapon systems. If I wanted everyone here dead, they would already be dead." She gestured to the walls around them. "Instead, they're all sleeping peacefully in their bunks, completely unaware that enemy forces have taken control of their base." The implication struck General Thokvar like a physical blow. "Impossible. We have the best security in the galaxy." "No," Captain Lim corrected. "You have security designed to stop other reptilians. You have security designed to stop creatures that think like you do. You don't have security designed to stop creatures that have been studying you for 30 years. She activated a small device, and holographic displays filled the air around them. They showed detailed plans of every major reptilian military installation, complete psychological profiles of key personnel, and step-by-step instructions for neutralizing each facility without firing a shot. "We know which of your officers can be turned. We know which can be frightened into making mistakes. We know which must be eliminated. Most importantly, we know that your species' greatest strength, your rigid social hierarchy, is also your greatest weakness." On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Jiang Minwu stood in a sterile laboratory surrounded by some of humanity's most disturbing scientific achievements. 30 years of biological research had produced weapons that most species couldn't even imagine. The insectoid nervous system is remarkably vulnerable to specific chemical compounds, he explained to his research team. A single airborne dose can cause complete behavioral breakdown in an entire hive cluster. His assistant, Dr. Song Heian, held up a vial of clear liquid. "And this? Designed specifically for crystalline entities. It disrupts their quantum coherence at the molecular level. They simply cease to exist." The weapons were elegant in their specificity, each one tailored to exploit biological vulnerabilities that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Humans had taken their natural talent for persistence hunting and applied it to warfare on a galactic scale. "The beautiful thing," Dr. Jiang continued, "is that these weapons are useless against humans. Our biology is so different from every other known species that we're essentially immune to our own creations." Meanwhile, the Insectoid Collective was learning the truth about human psychological warfare. Hive node Zaktar had been monitoring human transmissions for days, trying to understand their strategy. What he discovered was worse than any physical weapon. The humans had created artificial pheromone compounds that could override insectoid communication systems. Instead of coordinating hive activities, the chemical signals now carried messages of fear, confusion, and despair. Worker drones began attacking each other. Soldier castes turned on their commanders. Entire hive clusters fell into chaos as their most basic biological functions were turned against them. "They're not just defeating us," Zaktar reported to the hive queen. "They're rewriting our biology." Across space, other species were discovering their own nightmares. The energy-based Luminari found that humans had developed weapons that could disrupt their quantum coherence, causing them to simply fade out of existence. The aquatic Neptunes discovered that human forces could poison entire ocean worlds with compounds that were harmless to other species but deadly to their unique biochemistry. But perhaps the most terrifying discovery was made by the Ethan Diplomatic Corps. Their analysis of human tactics revealed something that made their species' natural flight instincts scream in terror. Humans weren't just fighting this war, they were using it as a testing ground for weapons and strategies they had developed against species they had never even met. "Every engagement teaches them something new," reported Ethan intelligence analyst Kretal. "They're not just defeating current enemies, they're preparing for future ones." The realization struck the galactic community like a physical blow. Humans weren't just dangerous because of what they could do to known species. They were dangerous because they were constantly evolving their ability to kill anything they might encounter. Colonel Go Yunho's psychological broadcasts expanded beyond military targets to civilian populations. His messages were carefully crafted to exploit each species' deepest fears and social weaknesses. For reptilians, the broadcasts focused on the breakdown of hierarchy and the chaos that followed. For insectoids, they emphasized isolation and the terror of existing outside the collective. For energy beings, they explored the horror of physical existence. The key, Colonel Go explained to his team, is not to break their will to fight. It's to break their will to exist as organized societies. The strategy was working. Government after government began to collapse as populations lost faith in their leaders' ability to protect them from an enemy that seemed to know them better than they knew themselves. Captain Lim. Su-Yung stood over the broken remains of General Thokvar's strategic planning committee. She hadn't killed them. She hadn't needed to. She had simply shown them how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered, how completely their strategies had been anticipated and countered. The war is already over, she told the shattered reptilian officers. You just haven't realized it yet. She was right. Across the galaxy, alien military commanders were reaching the same terrifying conclusion. They weren't fighting an enemy they could defeat. They were being systematically dismantled by creatures that had been preparing for this war since before most of their civilizations had discovered space travel. Dr. Yang, Minwu's biological weapons remained unused, held in reserve like a sword hanging over the galaxy's collective throat. Their existence was message enough. Humans could end any species they chose whenever they chose, without warning and without possibility of defense. The psychological impact was exactly what human strategists had intended. It wasn't enough to win the war. They needed to win so completely, so overwhelmingly, that no one would ever challenge human dominance again. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, one fact became clear to every surviving alien command structure.